Welcome to Navigating the Digital Playground, a podcast from the Stevens Point Area Public School District. I'm Sarah O'Donnell, Director of Communications, and in this series, we're exploring how students are using technology and how families and schools can support healthy digital habits. Today's episode focuses on cyber safety and digital footprints. We'll talk about what students need to understand about privacy, what adults sometimes miss, and how we can work together to help kids make thoughtful choices. Joining me are Officer Marchel, School Resource Officer at Ben Franklin Junior High, and Liz Peterson, Library Media Specialist here at SPASH. Thanks for being here, both of you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Officer Marchel. Can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about how long you've been with the district, maybe your PD background?
Sure. So yeah, Officer Kris Marchel with the Stevens Point Police Department. Just shy of 11 years I've been a police officer here in Stevens Point. I've been a school resource officer up at Ben Franklin for just over 5 years now.
Wow, I can't believe it's been 5 years already. That went really fast.
It has.
And Liz, how about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah. My name is Liz Peterson. I'm the current SPASH librarian. This is my 20th year as a teacher, and I spent about 10 years in a classroom, and then this is now my 10th year as a librarian.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. So I think we can just jump right into questions. I think that term cyber safety changes so quickly for families. So Officer Marchel, when we think about cyber safety, what does it actually mean for students today?
It means a variety of things. It means being aware of your privacy settings when whether we're talking emails, social media. It means the little things, like let's say we're using a social media site like a Snapchat that has GPS location, using that smartly, turning it off when we're maybe going out of town on a vacation, things like that. It means, for kids, not sharing your passwords with people, having a smart, secure password, things like that. It also means being aware that everybody that is out there on the internet isn't necessarily friendly or a friend. Just being aware of your surroundings and using common sense.
I like that. I like that a lot. Liz, do you think students are generally aware of those risks, or do you think there's some teaching opportunities there?
I think it's a combination of both. I have worked in now elementary settings and in high school settings. And from my experiences in the elementary setting, I know that our library media specialists and classroom teachers are going through a digital citizenship curriculum with our elementary students. So I know that there is an awareness that's being brought to students from that school perspective. And then I know that also myself as a parent, I've had those conversations with my kids as well. And so I think it's a combination. And I think as things are changing so rapidly, it's important for us to revisit these topics frequently. Mm-hmm. We can't just assume that once we've had that conversation or once we've had that lesson that we might not need to revisit again and refresh or shift our thinking as things change.
Yeah. We interviewed some SPASH students for the podcast as well, and they had shared with us a exercise that they had done in elementary school where they had looked up their names and found that to be, like, they found all kinds of things and found that to be really interesting, even at that grade. So if we think about maybe that exercise and that idea of continually kind of doing some education for students, what do we think, Liz, about that digital footprint, and why that matters and how we can help kids understand what that digital footprint looks like?
Yeah, I think for students, and I know even for myself, as I think back about, being born in the 80s and how just rapidly things have changed. When I first started going on social media, on Facebook, I wasn't necessarily thinking to myself like, wow, this is going to be out there in perpetuity.
Right.
I was just having fun with my friends and exploring this new landscape that existed. So I think it's important to help our kids understand that this is something that you're putting out there and it's there forever, even if you think you've deleted it, even if you can't initially find it simply with a Google search. There's archival ways that people get into different things. And so I always try to have a conversation with my own children too. Like, hey, is this something you think you're going to be proud of in 10 years that you're putting out here? Or are you going to be regretting that? Would you want grandpa and grandma to see that post or that picture? Or are you thinking, maybe not? And I think sometimes it's important, and we did talk about this a lot with the students in the elementary school, like pause and think.
Sure.
Because it's important to just not immediately react and give yourself some time to think about, do I really want to post this and for this to be out there?
Good advice for everyone.
Well, just to echo off of what Liz was saying about, thinking, I talk to 7th graders in FACS class every year, and that's one of the things I touch on. We teach them a little bit about how the internet works. We talk about servers and social media. Just to bring up Snapchat again, it became so popular because maybe mine and Liz's generation grew up with, Facebook or MySpace before that, where things were kind of a more permanent that followed us through, or as we age. Whereas Snapchat became popular because the kids saw this as, oh, look, I send this message, I send this image, and it disappears. It's gone.
Right.
So I explained to them a little bit about it's not really gone. Anytime any kind of communication goes through a server, where whether we're talking emails, social media, it's permanently saved on that server. I would venture, I'm not an expert in the field, but I would venture, your big social media, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, they probably have anything that's gone through their servers permanently saved. I don't know how long they archive them, but I've heard they have some of the first snaps that were ever sent archived.
Yeah.
So it's never really gone.
Never really gone.
And if I can add to that, I think another thing that we've all become more and more aware of, and we need to help students know this too, is that even if you think it disappeared, whoever you sent that to could have taken a screenshot.
Absolutely.
And that's also what I think about when I talk to my kids about different privacy settings that they have, or privacy settings I have on my own accounts, is that, well, I'm still trusting everybody who I said is my friend. They could be taking, screenshots, and relationships change, especially when you start with social media when you're young, and that can make a difference. You don't know who's taking screenshots of what you're putting out there.
For sure.
And I'm not going to share any of them, but there's literally apps that kids can download and that take screenshots without you knowing it, or it's like a background, app. So yeah, a lot of different ways, whether it's taking a picture with a different phone or, apps like that.
Yeah.
It's not just because you think it's going away in 30 seconds, it's not.
Doesn't mean it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about some of the negatives, because certainly there are. Do we think there's any positives of just kids being online and having access to maybe friends in a different way? I guess I'm wondering advice for families on, if kids are on these platforms, how do we help them engage positively?
Sure. If you look at me personally, I'm a little older, born in 1970. Just to age myself, but when social media first came out, I'm a combat veteran, served in the military straight out of high school, and did about 4 years when I moved back to my hometown. Kind of fell out of contact with a lot of friends. You didn't have phone numbers for them, or they moved, you didn't get an address. So probably for 10, 15 years there, you didn't really get to communicate. So it was great being able to, all of a sudden with social media coming out, be able to make contact and rekindle friendships. A lot of people have families that people disperse all over the United States, and it was a great way to, be in communication. I'm sure it's that same way today. We have aunts, uncles, grandparents that might live in a different state, and look how nice it is now. We can, share photos of, our basketball game or our concert or whatever it may be that we're proud of, and we can share those photos or those videos with family members. So, social media definitely has its advantages, but you need to think twice about what you're taking a picture of. Again, like Liz says, it is something I teach to the kids too in class. Let's not take a picture with our phone, even of anything you wouldn't be willing to show your family members, mom, dad, grandparents, myself. an administrator at school, because if you end up taking a picture that maybe you shouldn't have, all or any of those people may end up seeing it. So just kind of think twice about what we're taking pictures of, whether we intend to send it or just keep it on our own phone. Just kind of give it a little thought.
I like that. So I'm hearing maybe guidance is a little more helpful maybe in leading that conversation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there are a lot of positives to social media. I echo what you're saying about family members far away. I have family members who live overseas, and this is one of the only ways that we're able to see what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And I will also say that when we were going through some of those moments in COVID where we didn't have a lot of person-to-person contact, my children especially being able to be in contact with their friends through social media and even just their cell phone was really important for their social health. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's those positives that are there. And I am finding more and more that I try to remain, when I have conversations with my own children, with students here, I try to remain very just curious and trying to remain curious and thinking through the situation out loud without a sounding of judgment.
Sure.
I find that as soon as I seem like I'm bringing this judgment into the situation, then people tend to lock up.
Yeah. And
I really want to kind of play through that role playing with them and thinking about it from all different angles and asking questions of okay, so now what is your next plan? What is your next step? How do you think we should handle this together? And when I remain curious and kind of neutral, it's a lot easier to talk through those.
Sort of modeling the behavior that we want them, or the thinking patterns that we would like to instill. I like that. Kris, I know PD has been an amazing partner for us throughout, just overall, but definitely through this series that we were doing in person with families, and shared a lot of really great resources. Can you just kind of walk us through maybe what some of those resources might be for families that they may not be aware of? What happens if someone does share a picture online and we want to get it taken down? Are there ways to do that?
Sure. Your biggest resource is probably your school resource officers, your assistant principals, a teacher that you trust, right? An adult, a trusted adult, whether that's an aunt, uncle, mom, or dad, a trusted adult. Because, I think kids are sometimes afraid to come forward with a problem, or maybe they made, what they view as a mistake, and they're afraid to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. What they need to remember is that, especially as a child, depending on the situation and the circumstances, they could be a victim. If they were, contacted by somebody they didn't even know and basically coerced into, sending a picture, something like that, scammed into doing it, threatened into doing it, you're a victim. You need to come forward. You need to talk to a trusted adult. We don't punish victims in law enforcement. We try to help them through it. There are resources, some online resources that we'll share in this video later. We'll post them, where I think one of them, as far as getting images taken down, is takeitdown.ncmec.org. That's a resource. Obviously, as a school resource officer, I wouldn't say it's a common problem we deal with, but we've dealt with it quite a bit over the last few years. There's several surveys out, where they've given anonymous surveys to kids between the ages of, I think it's 10 or 11, and then up to 17 years old. And the last one I saw, it was 1 in 5 or 1 in 7 had admitted to taking or sending images that may contain nudity or something close to that. So that's a pretty big number. Honestly, I think as a SRO, a lot of it goes unreported, but there's help, right? Contacting a trusted adult, and as a SRO, probably one of our biggest missions is getting those images taken down. Making sure, if it got shared to a group of people, that we're contacting all those kids, contacting all those parents, and making sure that image isn't saved, so that a year down the line here, it doesn't pop back up and become an issue again.
Yeah. If I'm thinking about conversations I had with my daughters when they were that age, it's not necessarily a fun conversation to have with them. If someone was listening to this and thinking about how they might approach that conversation with a daughter or a son, what advice would you have for them?
The hardest part is not being judgmental, right? Not portraying to your child that, if something like this ever happens to you, or you find yourself in a difficult situation like this, you need to trust mom or dad. You need to know that we're going to be there for you, that we're not going to judge you, that we're going to help you through it, I think is the biggest thing to get across.
Building that relationship early around.
Right.
That honesty.
And then if something does happen, obviously we're going to be scared, angry, worried as parents, but making sure that we, give a positive image and support. Try to hide the anger part. Obviously we're going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
But you got to be that resource for them.
Yeah.
Is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I had some very serious conversations with my own children that, when you're talking about that adult that you trust, that care, that concern, that love is unconditional. Mm-hmm. And it's important for kids to understand that. And, unconditional doesn't mean we aren't humans and we aren't going to all experience all the feelings that go with the situation, but that ultimately, we have your back and you can come to us. And it may seem like something is world ending, but we will get through it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And it's having those organic conversations before it happens, right? It's talking about stuff that we see in the news, that we see in the media. Learn through other people's mistakes. Because if you think about the age group we're talking about here, junior high, 5th, 6th grade on up, all the way to, through high school, like you are going to make mistakes in life. I mean, that is the age time where you're learning how to navigate life. You're learning how to navigate, the ever-changing world that is social media. If I look back on how much it's changed, you're constantly having to learn new stuff. There's constantly new social media platforms. As a parent, I've said it too. I'm frustrated of why are kids, put in this situation where they're expected to make adult decisions.
Yeah.
Why don't we just take down the platforms? Well, the reality is because they're smarter at the technology than we are, and if you took down the 4 biggest social media platforms today, the kids would be up and running on new stuff tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or by the end of the day.
It'd be real quick, very quick. If families see something concerning online, what is the best first step for them?
Contact an SRO, contact a trusted adult. Let somebody know, even letting a friend know, right? Because that friend might care enough about you. And this has happened as an SRO where I have kids come to me and say, hey, my friend, has been talking to me about this. They're worried. They don't want to tell their parents. They're scared. I'll talk to a counselor at school, kind of have them handle it. Start with the counselor. That's how, typically how that will start. Get a trusted adult that they can connect with and kind of go from there and see if they're willing to talk to that counselor and see what happened.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I've had students approach me with different stories that will raise alarm bells for me, and I support them through that in a non-judgmental way and just want to express my concern for them and, explaining, hey, when you say you've met someone online, remember you don't really know them. And then I tap into my trusted adults, which are usually their counselors. And we are very, very fortunate in this district that we have so many different people part of our team that we can really help kids that way.
And for those families that maybe are nervous about contacting somebody, that don't want law enforcement involved, don't want the school involved, the social media platforms, if it was a picture or something soliciting images, whatever it may be, something concerning that's involving a social media platform, all of the platforms have where you can report a snap, report a post. If you don't want to, contact law enforcement or go that route, at least do that. All these social media sites are monitored. ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, they get reported posts from the social media companies of questionable photos that could contain child pornography. They do report, and they'll contact local law enforcement agencies to follow up in the area that was posted. But a lot of them start with somebody reporting a post. Obviously, they have software that detects this stuff, but if somebody reports a post, obviously that's going to get looked at.
Yeah, that's really good information, and we'll share. We can share how to do that too. Liz, is there anything that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you about?
You know what? I know we're speaking about this from a digital platform, but I really do feel like this is interpersonal skills. This is starting with how do we treat other people? How do we problem solve? And that does start young, right?
Yeah,
it starts right from the beginning. Parents are the first teachers working through problems. And then they come to school and we work through problems together on the playground, in the classroom. And then we make that shift to online. And so I always try to remember when I talk to kids or my own children, students, whoever it is, that think about this. Like, is this something you should be doing in an online platform? Or how would you say this to this person if you were face to face? And would this be a better face to face conversation? So I think sometimes we forget that behind that screen, there's still a person.
Absolutely.
And this is really, again, an interpersonal situation and skill. Yeah.
And that's something we talk about in the police outreach classes I teach for FACS too. Cyberbullying we talk about. I mean, we cover sexting, we cover how the internet works, all these, internet security type things. But we talk about how people will almost have a second personality when they go online, like their online personality, and why that may be, right? Because it's not face to face. People tend to say or put things out there that they probably wouldn't in person. So we talk about that. We talk about how to deal with bullying and cyberbullying. I mean, obviously, I have this talk with kids all the time. It almost seems like a badge of honor. I think Ben Franklin has, I forget how many kids in it, 500 plus. It's like a badge of honor if it's a social media site to be friends with or followed by every one of those kids. And I explain to the kids, like, that's not how you should be approaching social media. If you don't know them or at least have them in a class, you probably shouldn't be friends with them. Everybody isn't your friend or following you for the right reasons. People might just be following you to someday when you make a mistake to take advantage of that.
Grab that screenshot.
So, be a little more selective in how many people you're friends with. As parents, obviously, we have to have those hard discussions. We have to set hard lines as far as checking up on them. We need to be aware as parents that kids sometimes like to have an alter ego, right? They might have their normal Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook page that they share with you, and then they may have a second one that is kind of their alter ego or that they share with their friends, so be aware of that.
We do a whole lesson on Finstas in the elementary school, fake Instagrams and alternative profiles that children have.
And if you have questions on how to look into stuff like this, Google is your friend. I mean, I'm 55 years old, and like when computers came out, it was a ball bouncing back and forth on a screen when I was in 7th grade. I mean, we're DOS and, the beginnings of computers. So when I need to find stuff out, I Google how to do it, and it's usually a pretty self-explanatory checklist of how to do it. So.
Well, Officer Marchel, thank you, and Liz, thank you for helping us better understand cyber safety and digital footprints today. I know for me, this conversation has been really enlightening, and I know it's going to help our families and educators and students as well.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This has been Navigating the Digital Playground, a podcast from the Stevens Point Area Public School District. Our mission is to prepare each student to be successful, both in and beyond the classroom. To explore full episode transcripts, family resources, and upcoming events, visit pointschools.net/digital playground. Thanks for listening and for partnering with us to help every student learn, connect, and thrive safely and responsibly. This podcast is meant to share ideas and resources to support families. It is not a substitute for professional advice. If you have concerns about your child's well-being or digital habits, please connect with your school counselor or a trusted professional.